First things first, what exactly happened to the Brooklyn Nets? Well, for starters, they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, the team that would go on to win the championship. They also lost Kyrie Irving to an awful season-ending injury in Game 4. And of course, James Harden literally played on one leg for most of the series. And how can we forget Kevin Durant's performances in the playoffs? Playing like the best player in the world and single-handedly carrying the whole team on his shoulders. Funny enough, he came just a toe away from sending the Nets to the Eastern Conference Finals. That damn toe. Let's not forget that the best three-point shooter that season, Joe Harris, shot just 32.7 from 3 against the Bucks. Joe struggled to find his range in the postseason, and it ended up costing the Brooklyn Nets a place in the NBA Finals. During the regular season, Harris was on fire and he was very reliable. Apart from the power trio, he created another option for the Nets offense because he had a high chance of getting open looks.
Monk tries to cross, the steal! Joe Harris driving in, Harris scores with 3.4!
However, after setting a franchise record for the most threes in the first half of an NBA game against the Boston Celtics, he failed to maintain that level of productivity in the second round, and in the postseason as well. James Harden, yes, one leg, had 24 assists to 13 turnovers, and had 37.5 effective field goal percentage against the Bucks. Nicholas Claxton, who had the team's highest offensive rating, 134, and the lowest defensive rating in the series, played only 64 minutes across the 7 games. So, yeah, that also happened. The Brooklyn Nets had the most dangerous offensive unit in the league by a wide margin, but also had one of the worst defensive records in the NBA. They seemed to rely on outscoring the opposition rather than trying to prevent them from scoring. While that worked well during the regular season, that game plan didn't exactly work out in the playoffs. The Nets have a team that's built on offensive-minded individuals who are not exactly known for their defensive abilities or prowess. Take Harden, for example. He would rather hold on to the ball, try to hit ridiculous three-pointers rather than defend. The same thing goes for Kyrie Irving. While they led the whole league in offensive rating, they finished with the 23rd best defensive rating in the league. If they want to win the NBA championship, they will need to get players who can help them defensively. And this is why the offseason is very important for them. Another thing was the Nets' lack of depth in their front court. Their starting lineup consists of Kevin Durant, Joe Harris, and Blake Griffin. Outside of these players, they have Nicholas Claxton, who is in his sophomore year, and a 34-year-old Jeff Green. That's not good enough for a team who wants to win the championship, and for them to achieve that dream, they will need to make additions to their roster with players who can keep the momentum going. These players don't exactly have to be superstars, but they should be athletic and experienced players. Another factor was that the Nets didn't have a strong bench contribution. The players on the bench were incredible during the regular season, as they were able to continue their winning streak in the absence of their power trio. And then there was a sudden drop of quality, especially during the playoffs. If not, why else would KD be playing every minute of some games? It's simple, they don't trust their players on the bench to come on and make a difference. It looked as if the players had lost confidence in their ability and they kept making passes to KD. A good example of this is Landry Shamet. Landry was spectacular during the regular season, but he couldn't maintain the same standards during the postseason. Despite all his abilities, there's no denying that Landry struggles in offense and defense. Claxton, on the other hand, showed promise defensively, but he's not an elite rim protector or scorer. Injury was perhaps the biggest factor in how the Nets season turned out. The team's power trio were only able to play 8 games together in the regular season, as it was difficult to keep all of them healthy at the same time. Without a doubt, a healthy Brooklyn Nets team can cause some serious damage to any team. Even though the Brooklyn Nets lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round, they ought to feel proud of themselves. With Steve Nash, a rookie coach, serving as their head coach, they put together a super team that looks very likely to win the championship. While they didn't go all the way this year, they had a decent run for a team that has not built enough chemistry. Given all the conditions surrounding the franchise, there's no doubt that they did a great job in managing proceedings. They might not have reached the heights many people expected them to, but they managed to remain the most feared team in the NBA, and have the highest odds to win the championship next season. The reality is, this offseason is a make or break for the Nets, and the deals or transfers they make this offseason will go a long way in determining whether they win the championship or not. It'll also go a long way in determining whether they'll be able to keep their ambitious stars. Before working on any trade, the first bit of business for the Nets will have to be negotiating extensions for the Big Three. All 3 of their superstars have 2 years left on their contracts, with a player option for the 2022-23 season. And that is crazy given that the 3 of them have only been able to string 8 games together since they arrived in the club. Tying up all 3 of them this offseason to their respective maximum amounts would see them stay at the club all through the 2025-26 season. With all 3 players poised to make at least $50 million that season, the Nets will definitely have one of the most expensive rosters and largest luxury tax payments in the NBA if they're still on the roster. However, there are rumors that the Nets might be willing to part ways with Kyrie Irving this offseason. A few weeks ago, the Nets snagged their first free agent of the 2021 season, after signing San Antonio Spurs guard Patty Mills to a 2-year deal worth $12 million. If you followed the Olympic Games, you'd know that the Nets have made a coup here because Patty was on fire throughout the Olympics, leading the Australian national team to the semifinals where he faced his new teammate Kevin Durant. Mills had to choose between the Nets, Lakers, and Golden State Warriors, but he eventually decided to play for the Nets. Mills is a sharpshooter who can move seamlessly off the ball, which means he will help bolster the Nets' spacing and backcourt depth. Mills was so good that he hit a career high of 161 threes last season, and shot 41.3% on catch-and-shoot threes. The 32-year-old has also proved he can work well alongside stars during his tenure in San Antonio. And he showed this by playing with the big three of Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili. Throughout his decade-long tenure with the Spurs, Mills has served a vital bench role and has provided an important veteran presence. And this is exactly what the Nets need. So this is a deal that definitely works for both sides. It looks like Patty Mills isn't the only veteran that the Nets are looking to sign, and things just got spicy in the free market because the Nets are also signing James Johnson to a 1-year deal. Yeah, we know that Johnson only played 22 games last season for the New Orleans Pelicans after being traded, but in those few games, he was productive. He almost averaged a steal and block every game, something Johnson has maintained through his whole career. Having Johnson in the team will definitely help the Nets because he will certainly bring a different gear to this Nets team. We've already mentioned how bad the Nets were defensively last season, so expect Johnson to also be one of the focal points for head coach Steve Nash's small ball lineup. Johnson is known for his size, toughness, and length, which allows him to guard multiple positions and comfortably switch on defense. The Nets will be the 9th team Johnson plays for after splitting time between New Orleans Pelicans and the Dallas Mavericks. The Nets have also re-signed Bruce Brown, and that's a welcome news for every Nets fan, although it initially seemed like the Nets were going to lose Brown to offers approaching $9 million. However, they were able to keep their defensive stopper for half of that. The 24-year-old brought physicality and defense to the backcourt, but he played almost every position at some point. It's great news for the Nets as they were first worried about Brown's market reaching $8 million or maybe even $10 million after such a strong season with the franchise. Brown played 65 games for the Nets last season and started 37 of them, and every time Brown was on the court, the Nets were a far better team. In those games, Brown averaged 8.8 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 1.6 assists per game. Terms of the contract aren't exactly clear yet, but according to ESPN Sports, Brown has accepted his $4.7 million qualifying offer from the team.
With the 6th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Pelicans, yes, the New Orleans Pelicans, select Nerlens Noel from the University of Kentucky.
Noel was selected as number 6 in the 2013 overall NBA Draft, and ever since then, the 27-year-old has not been able to turn into the star that many expected he was going to become. Last season with the Knicks, he was only able to average 5.1 points and 6.1 rebounds. Still, it appears the Nets are expected to try and sign the 6'11" player, depending on how much it'll take to sign him. After the Nets signed DeAndre Jordan along with Durant and Irving for $40 million over 4 years, the contract immediately felt like a negative value. Not only has Jordan performed below value, but he has also fallen out of the rotation. This is an issue for the Nets, especially with 2 years and $19.7 million remaining on his deal. It doesn't make sense for someone to be making $10 million just by sitting there on the bench. If Jordan can't play, then they must do all they can to offload his contract. They can either turn him into someone who can help the team, or find a way to offload him. The Portland Trail Blazers once again had a tough campaign in the 2020-21 season as they finished with a 42-30 record, which more or less led to another first-round exit in the playoffs.
Does this feel like more than just the end of a series that, you know what, big changes are up ahead?
I have no idea, man.
But could Lillard be moving to Brooklyn? Lillard is under a 5-year contract he signed with the Trailblazers back in 2016. Despite his contract situation, the 6-time All-Star can still force his way out by publicly demanding a trade from the team's front office. Should this happen, many teams in the league would jump at the opportunity to get Damian onto their roster, and the Nets appear to be one of them. But how will the Nets achieve this, especially given their salary cap is at its near limit? And of course, they can't surely be thinking of playing Damian, Harden, Irving, and KD on the same team. They will most likely have to lose one of their 3 power trio in order to acquire Damian. But who? The answer is, and you might have guessed it, Kyrie Irving. Remember when we talked about how Irving could be making his way out of the franchise? Well, here's why. There's no doubt that Irving is one of the league's best players. However, both NBA fans and the Nets themselves have seen how Irving would engage in his off-court antics. One was his reluctance to speak with the media, and what about the time he violated health protocols in a public party, as well as his lengthy mid-season absence away from the Nets. While there's no doubt about Irving's ability and talent to win games for his team, especially when he's in good form, but his questionable actions can make or break a team's locker room. The Nets might be planning to have Irving for Damian, and if they do so, they would get another great talent in Lillard. Dame would bring even more firepower to the team, and he is also less injury-prone as compared to Irving. This would pay the Nets in many ways, especially in their quest to dominate the NBA for some time and win the NBA championship. However, given the type and caliber of player Irving is, it won't be a fair deal to ship him in exchange for Damian alone. The Trailblazers will have to include a capable backup to Damian. One person that fits the bill is Landry. The Nets have the highest odds to win the NBA championship this season, and if they're able to get all their power three free from injury and build chemistry playing together, they will become almost unstoppable. However, they will need to sort out their defense in order to become truly invincible, and that means getting one or two great defensive players into their team and roster. If they can also add strong, athletic players to their bench who will come in and make an impact, then we might be looking at the winners of the 2022 NBA championship. Comment below to let us know your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe for more. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss another one of our videos. We'll see you next time, latest Hoops fans. Until then, keep shooting your shot.